In the know, nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
A lot of it's Garrett, but a lot of it, Kirk has some dealings with that too. And then part of it is the communication. There's a couple times we didn't communicate it well. We end up blocking the wrong guy, and yes, part of it's communication, part of it's identifying the front, but it's as a group.
Yes, it is as a group. Speaking of groups, time for Purple Access. Zulgad, Chip Scoggins, of course, Star Tribune columnist, and Declan Goff, executive producer of the show. And all right, Chipper, you've had some time to digest week one and look ahead to a Cardinals team that absolutely kicked the crap out of the Tennessee Titans on Sunday themselves. What are your thoughts coming out of that Vikings game, what we saw as opposed to, I think, what we expected?
Well, we weren't sure if the line would be any better. It's worse. God, it's worse. And short of making personnel changes, now I don't know that they're going to have that many penalties every game. Obviously, you're not going to have that many false starts. I can't sit here and say they're not going to have that many holding penalties, because I think that's more a product of a guy not being good enough to block who's he's going against, and so he has a tendency to grab. So I like that part is more concerning than the false starts. But short of putting in Christian Darrisaw and maybe Wyatt Davis, how do you fix it, Judd? I mean, I don't know how you fix personnel other than make changes.
We talked about this though. The left tackle is not as good. It's not even close. The left guard in his defense played right guard and was a college left tackle. And the fact is, just to expect this to be this seamless transition, which, by the way, I keep saying this, the most important thing is they don't have time for guys to learn. Like, this is not a learning year, right? The center is just, I think he's a bust, unfortunately. He's a smaller guy who gets pushed around. And the right guard, until training camp started, was a tackle. So, like, I guess my question to the Vikings would be, what did you expect exactly? Seems like a lot of hope. And what we saw was awful. But it shouldn't really shock us as much as it probably did.
No, and Zimmer even said it the week of a couple of days before the game. He said, "Yeah, we have a bunch of unknowns there."
Yeah.
Well, if you go into a season with a bunch of unknowns, you're not going to bat 1,000 on those unknowns, right? I mean, there's going to be some that are just not as good as you think or you hope or whatever. And so, and here's the problem. I know the Bengals invested in that defense, and they're better. That's not the best defense line they're going to face this year. Probably not even close to the best defense line they're going to face. And so, it's troubling that they got pushed around to that degree by a team that's probably pretty average.
Yep.
And so what happens when they face, Chandler Jones on Sunday?
Rashad Hill. Like, what do you do there? How much help?
Well,
I know you do, but what does that do to the rest of your offense as far as the scheme goes? And if you help Rashad Hill against Chandler Jones, he had 5 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and 2 forced fumbles. Is help enough to save you? That's my question.
And that's the thing, Judd. How much of Clint Kubiak's offense is going to be predicated on just trying to protect the offensive line and not being able to do. I mean, here's the thing. How are you going to ever be able to establish a consistent deep passing game if you can't protect and you have to do max protect and Cousins is constantly having the pass rush come right up his face? I mean, how many times was it where it just collapsed from the interior? And it's just it's a double whammy, because it's not like you got Houdini back there who could just escape. And so this is it's the perfect, I don't know if perfect storm, but you have a quarterback who's not mobile, who gets skittish, who's not great at improvising with an offensive line that can't hold up. How's it, and you have good enough, and it's not like it's every place. So you have good enough skill guys where, the times that you are able to get to Jefferson or Dalvin or whatever, you're going to have some big plays and Thielen, but it's just consistency. I don't think you're going to be able to consistently be in the rhythm that you want, because you're constantly facing that pressure and having busted plays or negative plays.
And we're in year 4 of Kirk too. So what amazes me is it's not like they don't know exactly who Kirk is. And we all assumed, and I guess we were, well, I don't guess, I know that we were wrong, but it made some sense in my mind when they, on draft night or on the draft weekend, they initially thought Darrisaw could play. They were wrong there because he's hurt, but Wyatt Davis as well. Like, there's a reason why they took him, I thought, in the 3rd round, and I thought they were going to plug and play him at guard right there. And instead, we've got a guy who's been converted in Udo from tackle to guard, which is, everybody knows that's not like this very simple, hey, just go play guard now. That takes time. So this is very odd to me in some ways how we've ended up back here. And I'm also, just from a starting point, when are they going to realize that there's nothing they can do pass protection wise with Bradbury to make this work?
Yeah, and that's the problem, because it's just the pressure and him being shoved back into Cousins. It's one thing to have him coming wide, and you can maybe step up in the pocket. You can't step up in the pocket if he's getting pushed backwards. I mean, there's just no. It just breaks down everything. And I get it that he's fast and athletic and great on the zone blocking and all that you want, but I mean, if he can't hold up against big defensive tackles at pass rush, which guess what, every team has now. I mean, this is not like, oh God, we got to face a guy once or twice, maybe 3 times a year. No, it's every week. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, but here's the thing, Judd. I mean, what are the options?
No, I know.
How do you? What's the way out of that box? I mean, and it's not like you have Steve Hutchinson there to protect him and to help him, right? So It's like you're compounding it, but by having a guy that you really don't know what you have in Cleveland. Let's be honest, you don't know what you have, and you don't know what you have in Udo.
No.
So you have 2 guards that are really, you're trying to figure out with a center that needs help.
And Zim, in his day after press conference on Monday, specifically said something along the lines of getting Bradbury more help from the guards. But you just said it. You can't have. I mean, it's one thing to have a veteran guard and plug that player in and say, we need you to help Garrett too, right? But like you said, Cleveland and Udo are going to be basically just fending to represent themselves as guards, and so to be like, hey, we also need you to. I don't understand how this continues to always be just a piecemeal lack of thought process here. And look, and it's one game, okay? I get that. No, I do think the line's in trouble, but here's the one thing. I didn't hear the name, I don't think, of Dalvin Tomlinson, the new 3 technique, called once on Sunday. And you keep thinking to yourself, you could have invested that in a free agent guard. Like, you could have gone and instead, and look, Michael Pierce, I thought, looked good. And that, and so I'm not saying don't address the line, because both lines are important. But I guess my question for the Vikings is, how do you always end up back here?
Yeah, and it's, well, and the thing is, it's like they have now, we can't say that they haven't invested draft capital. That was the narrative for a decade, right? They didn't spend high draft picks. Well, we can't say that anymore.
Right.
The problem is, did they take the right guys and can they develop them? I think that you look at Bradbury, they invested draft capital there.
Right.
You take the right guy, they obviously took the right guy in Brian O'Neill. Cleveland, we have no idea. Darrisaw, we have no idea. Wyatt Davis, you got to let him play. But yeah, it's the Riley Reef thing now is looking worse and worse. And maybe he was so offended and insulted when they made him, did that to him last year, where basically we'll give you 48 hours to decide if you'll take this pay cut or we'll cut you,
Right.
And maybe he had it in his mind that no matter what they offer, I'm going somewhere else because I don't want to be there. Although Zim made it sound like they were best buddies in the lead up. But to me, that was a major, major misstep, because Judd, how is Rashad Hill going to hold up 17 games against these pass rushers?
Well, they're going to have to. They are banking on Darrisaw coming back at some point fairly soon, and it might be a mistake, but they are. There's no way Chip. There is no way. Rashad Hill, everyone on that with that team can pay the lip service to us that they want about, really, he knows what he's doing. He's playing great. No, you can't do that. And number one, it's not fair to Rashad Hill. Like, he is a backup. He is being set up. Now help or not, Chandler Jones on Sunday, he's being set up to fail. So that one, Darrisaw, either has to come back before the bye or right after it. But there is no way that there's a 17-game plan for Rashad Hill to play left tackle, protecting Cousins' blind side.
The problem is, Judd, where are they going to be at the bye if this thing continues? I mean,
I know.
You look at their schedule, and I know it's one game, and we've done this long enough that where you think a team's just dead and buried or whatever, they'll win a game, right? So nothing has surprised me in this league, but that schedule, you look who they have the next 3 games, and you're like, this could they could be in a hole quickly.
Yep.
And with the schedule the way it is on the back end, you're not digging out of a hole with that schedule.
Correct. And in fact, it's weird to say, but Sunday's game against the Cardinals, to me, becomes incredibly important because one, if you start 1-2, that's a problem. So that's assuming if you lose on Sunday that you then come home and beat Seattle in week 3. But 2, it's incredibly important just to see how much of a potential blip the Bengals game was. Because there were things about it. No, you're right. The penalties can be cleaned up. But there were definitely things about it that felt like this might be the reality for now. And if that's the case, I'm not saying that they can't try and fight for a playoff spot, but the notion that they were going to be as good as I thought if they lose again on Sunday, it's getting farther and farther away at that point.
I agree. And I said 9-8 going to the season, and I was chalking up the season opener as a win. And I know their comeback was, and I heard it a couple times, bad as they played, penalties, all that, they still had a chance to win the game. Yes, but it required one of the most idiotic coaching decisions I think ever.
Yes.
By Zach Taylor going for that 4th down when you're up 20. If he doesn't do that and they just punt it, I don't think that's a close game. I really don't. There was no evidence to say that the Vikings were going to get it, but he basically opened the door and said, "Here, come back and get into the game." Yep. And so that changed that game. And yes, they took advantage of it, but I don't think that game. I don't think it would have been like that had he just punted the ball and done the smart thing.
Yep, and the Dalvin Cook call was wrong on the review, I thought. But that being said, as everyone with the Vikings said, not the fan base, but people with the team, you can't allow it to get to that point and then be like, we got screwed. That's not how this works.
It looked like his butt was down, but it was close enough to where I had to watch it like 10 times. And if you have to watch it 10 times, you have to go with the call on the field, right? Yeah. There's just so much traffic and bodies there that it was hard to be definitive. I mean, it looked like it, but I also can see it the other way too. It probably depends on which fan base you're in.
Well, yeah.
I'm sure Cincinnati was thinking.
We talked a bunch about that call as well. I think the league should decide, you know what? Instead of we're going with the call on the field, I would almost prefer that the people in New York don't know what that call was, because when that call is made on the field, there is no way that the officials saw that play. Like, to your point, there's bodies. They basically got excited because the crowd's going nuts, and very smartly, the Bengal player got up and he's pointing, and they're like, okay, possession, Cincinnati. Yeah. I would almost prefer that the people who are reviewing it don't know that, so then they can just make an independent call, because the replay in that case, it's not perfect, but it's better than what the actual officials saw to make the call on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't thought of that, but that's actually a smart thing where it clearly is neutral in that they have no idea what was called on the field. And so you don't have, and I don't know if it's biased, but maybe you're thinking, okay, they had a better view. They're right there at the field. They saw a fumble. And so you have that in your mind going in. That's actually a really good idea. I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, but here's the thing. I go back to, there's no guarantee they would have finished the deal. And
no,
you could have stopped Cincinnati too.
Yeah, that's not why they lost. That's not why they lost. They lost because they played one of the most atrocious first halves I've ever seen. That's why they lost.
It was the worst. that first half was as bad as I've ever seen an offensive line play. When you factor in penalties and pass rush and just inability to open up any holes. And the thing is, when they play like that and they have those holding penalties, you basically take your best player out of the game. Because you're not, when it's 3rd and 18, you're not running Dalvin.
Right.
If it's 3rd and 1, you will. 3rd and 2, you will. But it's
Right.
just basically just took him out of the game.
Yeah, it's going to be between that line, between Clint calling plays for the first time, which again, I will go back to, is very difficult. That's a very tough job. Like, the good ones make it look simple because they're the good ones. So yeah, it feels like, Chip, that there's a lot of works in progress here in a year where you don't have time for that. And that's if this was a year where you said, well, they'll probably win 7 or 8 games and that's fine, then I'd be like, okay, let guys learn. But I don't feel like the head coach, the GM, and the quarterback too probably have the ability to be like, we're comfortable with guys, trying to learn on the job for 4 or 5 games. That doesn't exist to me.
No. This is not a rebuilding. This is not year 1 of them, a regime. This is not year 2. This is
year 0, Chip.
It's not year 0. This is make or break year. This is what this is. I mean, we're either going to move forward with you or we're not, I think. And now the Wills haven't said that, but I mean, it's just common sense, right? You look at it. Go back to Kubiak, and it's a point I wanted to make too, and I said earlier. It's hard enough being a first-time play caller, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how much of it in the back of his mind is he thinking about that offensive line when he's putting together a game plan, or he's putting together, or just in game, like, holy cow, I've got to protect this guy. I got to protect this guy. I can't call these plays I want to because my offensive line can't hold up. I mean, I think that compounds how hard it is for him because he's worried about a position that is just not really good right now, And so
right.
I'm sure that it's the same thing if you had a quarterback that you didn't trust. You're like, we have to really simplify things and make it easy and blah, blah, blah. So, I'm sure it's even harder for Kubiak now to really call a game or install a game plan, not knowing if you can trust your offensive line.
Yeah, 3rd and 18 does not work. Like, you can't continually be like, hey, what play do you have? There were probably a handful or more of down and distance situations in that game on Sunday that aren't on your sheet.
Yeah,
like they're just simply not there. You're just trying to make things up to get better field position to punt from. So yeah. So what do you do on Sunday against not just Chandler Jones, Kyler Murray? I don't know if you saw the play against the Titans where he literally scrambled the length of the field from sideline to sideline and made a throw to, I think it was Ronald Moore on 3rd down. That was an incredible play. What do you do there? Because Joe Burrow, he's first game back. I like him, but it's not like he could really test you as far as his ability to scramble. You are now going against a guy who scrambling wise reminds me of Russell Wilson when he was younger, but you are actually going to face a guy now who has more ability athletically than Wilson does at this stage of his career.
Yeah, the speed. Yeah, I mean, the speed is different. That's exactly who I had in mind, and we've seen how much trouble they've had with Russell Wilson over the years, just keeping plays alive and then throwing the ball down the field. And so that, I don't know if you have to spy on him, but and Zimmer said it yesterday that he can sit here and say we got to keep him in the pocket, but you're probably just wasting your breath because it's easier said than done. I mean, I think you just have to know that there's going to be 3, 4, 5 plays where you lose contain and he just takes off. You hope you keep him to 15 yards and not 60. You hope he doesn't have just like ones that break. But I mean, he's going to scramble and make a throw down, and you can't lose sight of Hopkins, and you can't lose sight of these receivers.
And he can make the throws now too, though. That's the scary thing.
Yeah, and it's we talked about the offensive line. I'm not sure that Breeland really inspired a lot of confidence with his pass coverage in the opener, and I think Cincinnati clearly went away from Patrick Peterson and started picking on Breeland. So let's see, can Arizona figure out a way to get matchups with Hopkins on him or whoever, Rondale Moore? So it's a double whammy, Joe, because they have really talented wide receivers, but they have a quarterback who is Houdini, who can move around back there. And, you talk to those cornerbacks all the time. It's like, it's hard to cover a guy that long. You can't say, okay, cover a guy for 7 seconds, 8 seconds. I mean, it's too long to have to do it when he's buying time. So I don't know. I mean, they're going to have to, I think, secondary's got to be good, and in the front, the rush is going to have to be disciplined and try. If you get a chance to get him, you have to get him on the ground and not let him wiggle out of something.
Yeah, and the problem though is that getting him on the ground is so difficult. His ability to escape guys, and especially big guys like Pierce, it's phenomenal. And that's I'm just trying to think of what Mike will try and do, because he's gonna have to have a wrinkle or something, right? Just something to at least present a look that they're not completely expecting, or I feel like it's going to be a long afternoon for the defense.
Yeah, something that involves Kendricks probably, who's fast and is right too. I mean, I would imagine he's going to be pivotal to that game plan and trying to, if Murray, starts doing his thing back there, have Kendricks, available to try to chase him down. But it is to ask a lot of your secondary to have to hold up that long when he's buying time back there like that.
Let's talk about a guy that, there's blame and responsibility to go both directions on this one, but I want to talk about Cam Dantzler, Chip, because this guy was a 3rd-round pick last year, and he started 10 of the 11 games in which he played. And I actually thought he was asked to take on a very difficult role. And I thought he made progress. They signed Breland, which I have no problem with. Dantzler came to training camp, and I don't know if he was disheartened or what, but he definitely did not have a good camp, and we saw him get burned, or at least he was partially responsible for a deep touchdown in the first exhibition game against Denver. Special teams wise, where he needs to play, he didn't really show up. But that being said, I'm torn here, because it feels like the Vikings have buried him in the doghouse. He wasn't active on Sunday. They're trying to teach him a tough love lesson. And I'm thinking to myself, one, I don't know if that works with the 2021 athlete. And two, this is a 3rd-round pick in which you drafted a cornerback in the 1st round and had to cut him because of off the field issues. I don't like how this is trending. And if you have to, if Dantzler ends up getting traded or cut, or I don't know, that's an indictment against the coaching staff and front office as well. You can't just say it's all Dantzler. This is an opportunity to either, continue to develop a guy who I think needs to eventually start. But if you lose him completely, that's on you too.
Yeah, it's so hard to even envision this guy starting when you see where he's at now. I mean, he's basically out of sight, out of mind, and they're
right.
But Zimmer's just dismissive anytime he gets asked about him. Yesterday, he's like, "Well, he's got to play special teams. He's going to,
But do you like that approach?
It's definitely tough love, and it's Zim's approach. Not to say that it works with everybody, and I don't know Cam Dantzler's personality, how he is, what have you, but I think it's fair to say he's lost at this point. I mean, we saw him I was out there one training camp practice, and it was a team period, and it was 4 plays, and 3 of them were bad for him, and he just I know he had the injuries, and he's not the biggest guy, but you drafted him in the 3rd round for a reason. You liked him. Now, whether you misevaluated him once you got him here and you thought, maybe he wasn't as good as we thought he was, I don't know. But it's a waste just to have a 3rd round pick that you've basically discarded at this point. And so we'll see if he gets, maybe there's a grand plan here that we don't know about, that Zimmer's like, I'm sparking something, and then we'll get him back in there, and maybe he's showing him something in practice that we just we're not seeing. But that's a lot of draft capital, for a guy that you're almost done with at this point. Sounds like,
but
I don't know where they go. I honestly don't go. But it's on the player too. If they're saying, show us something on special teams, well, dang it, then you need to show him something on special teams to get back in there too. I mean, I don't think Zimmer's just saying that just to say it.
What's weird about it is Dantzler's being treated like a undrafted guy or a
Yeah.
veteran free agent that they brought in last year and have soured on now. And they're like, okay, we're done there. Which if it had been a guy who had played 8 years in the league and now he was gone, you wouldn't care. But this is a 3rd round pick going into his 2nd year who you invested 10 starts in last year. That's why I don't like this. That's why this feels like because Bashad Breeland and Patrick Peterson are stopgap guys.
Yeah, and what we don't know, Judd, is okay. Dantzler started last year out of necessity. He shouldn't have been starting, right? I mean, it's just they miscalculated that. They got rid of guys. They've admitted that was a mistake. But what we don't know is if Dantzler's mind did he think just assume, well, I'm a starter. You know, I'm going to be back next year and I'm a starter. And then he sees, oh, wait a second. They bring in 3 veteran guys. Did he handle that the right way? Did he pout? Did he not come in the best frame of mind? I don't know these things. I'm just throwing out options. And is that part of this too, where he just assumes something that they didn't assume? You know, I don't know, but it's clearly he's in Zimmer's crosshairs, and Zimmer's taking tough love with it, and we'll see if it works. You know, it might work, and it might just completely blow up, and the player just doesn't respond the way that they want him to.
Right.
And but that has to play out a little bit more, right?
Yes, but I just think it's also incumbent upon the team to fix the problem because they created it. We all told you don't start these guys, and they're like, we're gonna start them and it's gonna work out fine. And then halfway through, they're like, oh my god, it didn't work out. And now it's like, Cam Dantzler wasn't that good, and now he's come back and not been that great. It's like, well, no. It's like, you know, I mean, I'd love to know. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when they've talked about Wyatt Davis, for instance. What's your reasoning for not starting him? Because he came in, you know, a little bit fat. Well, he's a guard. Okay, let's work with him on that. But I mean, to move Udo from tackle to guard, which again, I will go back to, I think is a major ask right before training camp. So you didn't tell him in March. So you drafted, there was clearly a plan for Davis to play at some point at least. And now you're just like, well, that didn't work out because the coaching staff might not, you know, like the shape he's in. Again, that's not how this should work. This should work of a common sense approach to because the thing that frustrated you last year, Chipper, was Ezra Cleveland. They're like, he can't start. He can't start. Drew Samia is going to start it. Really? Did you look at his grades? So that's where I wonder, like, is this tough love thing, which by the way, Bill Parcells, God bless him, in 1986, this idea kicked ass. In 2021, it don't kick ass no more.
No, and it's I mean, if you're mad that the guy showed up, you know, a little bit overweight, run him in training camp or OTAs or whatever. Make the point there, but get your best guys on the field.
Yes,
and I, you know, again, we're not there every day to see Wyatt Davis and where he's at, but is it not an upgrade at this point? If it's not, then you've got a problem with your evaluation when you're drafting guys.
Yes.
You know? I mean, the whole point was we got to get bigger inside. We got to do all these things. And so, it's, but hey, when Mike Zimmer is coach, this is his style. This is what he does. I mean, it's proven track record. He's done it for years. They may get to a point where, like, you know what, we're tired of tough love and we're going to go a different way. But when he's your coach, this is what you're getting.
I don't mind tough love. I just want it to be combined with common sense of what works with today's player because we can, you know, say, well, Parcells, well, it did work, but that's a completely different time period. I got an idea to run past you, Chip Scoggins. But before I do, I want to thank our sponsors here. First of all, TCL, enjoy more. If you are at home watching football games on Saturdays and Sundays, let me suggest a TCL television for you. The experience is fantastic. And then, of course, Purple Access, Purple Daily, everything purple. Sponsored by our friends at Surly Brewing. And Chip Scoggins, I got one question for you. How many Surly Furiouses are in your refrigerator right now?
I have a 6-pack.
Yes.
Waiting for me when I get back. I'm taking a trip to the homeland today. Tennessee, baby. I'm going home. When I get home, I will have a Furious when I get home.
That sounds excellent. And you know why? because Chip Scoggins knows what Judd Zulgad knows, what all of you out there need to know. You do enough settling in life, be like Chip, crack open a Surly Furious, enjoy the IPA that revolutionized Minnesota craft beer. Don't settle, get surly. I got an idea to run past you. Give it a little bit of thought. It's not a hot take, okay?
Okay.
So I've been on, and I think you agree, I've been on there's no way that Kellen Mond should start. Like this year, you're not going to he's not prepared yet. And you stand a chance, in my opinion, of ruining him long-term. So, and I'm not saying Cousins is not going to get benched, but if he got hurt, if he got COVID. But the more I watched week 1 and I watched Justin Fields with a package of plays, I watched Trey Lance very much a package of plays. What would you think of toying with the idea of coming up offensively with a package of plays for Mond that don't call on him? So I'm not talking about a huge package. I'm not talking about him starting, but he definitely brings a different skill set than Kirk does. He's more obviously athletic. I think he's got abilities. I just don't think he's prepared to take on the full menu of plays yet, which is fine.
Yeah.
What would you think about a Mond package of plays to at least deliver a curveball to opposing defenses?
I would have to feel comfortable that it's plays that he's comfortable with, the offense is comfortable with, the offensive line is comfortable with, and that's going to work. And I wouldn't do it just for the hell of it. There has to be like you see a Trey Lance or Justin Fields, you're like, that's a weapon. Like that's something that is a advantage for you, something unique that you have. Well, I think you need to be so confident in what Mond in the plays that you give him that would be more than just hey, let's just throw this out there to give him a different look. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'd want it to be like you feel like you have a chance to hit something big or something that catch him off guard with something that's really an advantage for you and not just. And that's why I used to always like the Wildcat stuff, right? It's like. Initially it worked, but then after a while it just kind of became, well, let's just do the Wildcat because it's, something different. Well, it needs to have an opportunity to be successful. So I think I'm sort of on board with that. I think I would, I think I'm 50-50 on it. I would just want to make sure that it's 4 plays and a great look that you can execute well and not wind up with, 2nd and 17 because you just wanted to get him out there. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Hey, but I did like to see your guy throw a pass. You've been calling for it all training camp. Jefferson threw your pass.
Yeah, and who was at the podium yesterday who tipped off what it was supposed to be? It was supposed to be a pass to Thielen.
Really?
Deeper down the field, and Thielen was covered. And because Justin Jefferson I think he's a smart, and I know he is a great athlete, and so he basically saw that they had picked up or covered Thielen and was like, okay, screw it, and made a nice pass to Osborne.
He went through his progressions.
Yeah. I think he's good enough to. I think he's good enough to. Yes, I think he went through his.
He went to a second read,
and I'm going to tell you right now that play is not on ice. That play is coming back at some point, and he will throw a touchdown pass.
Yeah, that's great. How many receivers would just say, "Okay, this was designed to go to Thielen. I'm throwing it."
Oh no, the majority would just run, right?
Or run. Yeah,
Just
we're either forced to throw
off.
or just run. Yeah. That's pretty headsy. So I mean, I like that wrinkle.
I'm just thinking about
the more I think it, more you got me thinking about Mond now. It's like, yeah, maybe there's an opportunity there.
So here's my thought: if you came up with a package of plays from Mond, especially initially that teams didn't expect, the ability to move the pocket itself would improve because Kirk on design rollouts is really good. Okay. But if the play collapses and then he has to take off, that's not his strength. So I'm trying to think with an offensive line that's not great. And you definitely would not tell Mond, hey, sit back in the pocket and go through your progressions and then run. It would be a design play. But the more I just watch these creative offensive minds, so I'm not trying to say that he should be Justin Fields. Okay. Like, don't hear that. But I am saying I see Fields and Lance run plays, and I'm like, I wonder if that would translate a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, the more I sit here and think about it, it's like, it's intriguing. I don't know that Zimmer would go for it. Imagine Kubiak trying to
No, I know.
sell that one to Zimmer. Walk into his office Monday morning. I got an idea. This is what we're gonna do. I got a package of plays for Monday. No,
you'll be running Dalvin more. Let's just run Dalvin. Run Dalvin left, run Dalvin right, run Dalvin up the middle. I don't care. All right, Chipper, you enjoy the trip to the homeland. Enjoy the Surly Furious once you get home, and we will talk to you next week.
All right, brother. We'll see you.